Welcome everyone to episode 265 of Just Joshing. I'm your host Joshua Pintaresco. I write stuff in podcast 2. Today, maybe a historic day in Canada. The Raptors may win their first title, which is a first in the NBA's history, but on this special momentous occasion, we have Talena Winters join the podcast in part 1 of an amazing 2-part conversation. Talena is an amazing woman, amazing author. She writes a really good book. I'm reading The Undines Tear right now, and I'm really enjoying it. It was a real pleasure to chat with her. It really, really was. It's a bit of a tangent, I'm not going to lie, but a very fun one. I started with how she got into writing, and I don't know if we actually finish in part 1, but that's why this is a 2-part conversation, and an amazing one. Some business here to wrap up here. I got to announce some winners. I do not have currently the winner for 49th Parallels. I have a winner, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So until they verify, I will announce that on Thursday. But for the other 2, Undines Tear goes to Nikki Iverson. Congratulations. Another copy of 5 Critical Things goes to Rebecca Raymond. Congratulations, Rebecca. I have contacted both of you, assuming I hear the A-OKs. You guys should be getting your books later this week. Like I said, this Thursday, 49th Parallels will be announced. Their winner will be announced as well. Outside of that, it's been a really cool experience watching some things happen. I set a personal record the other day, 100 downloads in one day, which is, I think, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that is a significant bump in traffic, and I really am thankful for each and every one of you. I've been watching this podcast expand in a really, really cool way, and I owe that to each and every one of you, so thank you very, very much. Beyond all that, I'm trying something a little different. I'm putting the advertisements right here. I have a lot of sponsors for the next couple weeks, so, and I should say this now, I am open for sponsorship. I do have a specific rate, but I'm also will push your books or give them away on the podcast. So if you guys are interested, contact me at michaelthroughtime@live.com, michaelthroughtime @live.com. All right, let's get to our conversation, shall we? The following podcast is sponsored by author-editor Talena Winters. Talena has just released her book, The Undines Tear, which is book 1 of the Rise of the Grigori trilogy. It is a young adult setting which has a very interesting take on mermaids and mermen, which are called undines. You can find this book on Amazon, Kobo, and all available book platforms, or you can get more information on TalenaWinters.com or through her in social media channels at Talena Winters. And by the Raven Podcast. The Raven Podcast is the brainchild of Jason Lavelle. Each episode, he actually narrates a story from an author, and then him and the author get together and they do an interview about the story. This is a perfect commute podcast on the way to work. They're short and very memorable. I really dig Jason's take on interviews and how he conducts himself in telling stories. He's an awesome narrator. He's a great guy, and this is a great podcast. Check it out at theravenpodcast.com or in any podcast app you are aware of. And by Adam Dries. Adam Dries' latest book is 5 Critical Things for Successful Book Signings. It is one of the best books you can read on how to conduct yourself at a book signing, book presentation, speech, you name it. Adam is a fantastic writer, but he's also a fantastic presenter, and this book is for any author trying to get as good as he is. Check out the book on any available platform, Amazon, Kobo, or brick-and-mortar bookstores as well.
Yeah. So I use that app.
What?
I use that app.
It's a really good app.
Yeah.
I find it makes your recordings actually better. So when you actually go into Audacity, which is the other program I use,
I've used Audacity.
What are you using now?
I don't do podcasts, so I have for music or sound mixer I use Reverb now.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
So, but I haven't done much with it for several years because I've been focusing on writing.
Yeah, so it's all right. So my usual first question is, if you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
Incriminating.
You have to be a 16-year-old pop singer. She had the best answer.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to be boring. I can't think of it.
It's okay.
I mean, I've probably done something.
So Talena Winters does not remember any crimes she committed at all.
Parking tickets.
I have parking tickets too.
Oh, I sound like so lame now.
No, it's okay. I won't tell you all the crimes I commit then. We'll leave it at that. I got a feeling my coffee's there right now, but how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
It's pretty good. I got here actually earlier than I thought I would.
Oh,
so yeah. So I ended up like, I'll have breakfast, and all of a sudden you're there. It's like, oh crap.
Oh, as you said, yeah. Oh gosh. You didn't have to leave your breakfast there.
No, I didn't. No. I was ravenously hungry anyway. So it was just like I was wolfing, and I was like, oh, okay, good. I thought she's here. It's all good. But anyway, so. I looked you up. Like you did you start like for you? Did you want to write or did you want to be a journalist first?
Neither of those actually. If it's okay, I'll just kind of dive into my quick backstory. So actually, I grew up wanting to do music.
Okay.
And I always said if I ever went to college, it's going to be to do piano. And by the time I graduated from high school. This is how much of a nerd I am. I actually did self-directed learning in my last 2 years of school, and in grade 12, I did a full-time job and a more than full course load. I ended up having to drop one of the courses because I just couldn't handle it. But I was totally burned out by the time I graduated. I'm like, I'm never going back to school. And I actually went to India for 5 months to do a missions trip. I was volunteering in Bible college, just doing
everything.
Yeah, odd job kind of stuff. And then when I came back, I was kind of like, at that point I was 20, and I was like, now what do I do? So I tried a couple of things, but basically I came back from India in February, and then I think in like July I decided I wanted to go to college that fall, and all the professors in the music department, I was at Red Deer College, and all the professors were on holidays, but I was able to take my exam and then find out I had to get started with a what do they call it?
A prerequisite?
Yeah, kind of like I needed to take a 2-week course for theory because my theory skills weren't quite up to par yet. So I was in there by the middle of August, and I was taking this, you have an interview with me.
Yes, I do. We started a little early today, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyways, so then, I ended up getting into the 2-year program at RDC for music with piano and then jazz piano and then a composition focus. So while I was there, I met, actually in that course, that prereq course, I met the woman who would become like one of my lifelong best friends. She asked me to become her roommate with her girl. Her name's Candace Marshall, and we ended up moving in together. We spent more time together than married people. We ended up starting to write a musical together, like co-writers. She was a vocalist, so it worked out really well. And then we both graduated, and I got married, and we have big dreams for this musical at some point still, but that's kind of come and gone over the years. It is basically finished to the point we can finish it without a lot of money. Let's put it that way. So at that point, I got married. I did do some stuff with songwriting, trying to get my stuff out there, but the music industry was changing quite a bit right around then. That was in 2000 to 2002.
Yeah.
And so it was becoming pretty tough. Like, I was a pretty prolific songwriter, but I lived in Alberta. Like, I lived in Sylvan Lake at the time, and like Nashville's a long ways away. And I was not a performing songwriter. I'm a decent performer, and I can hold a pitch, but I'm not. It was never my dream to be on the road, to be touring.
So you wanted to be Diane Warren, right? Those big epic musicals, and then write those big epic music songs and big scores and movies.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, she's actually one of my heroes, and so that kind of music is kind of the stuff I was writing as well. So I did try to get myself into the industry, but then I ended up having kids, and just energy kind of can't be divided, and so my kids were always my priority, which I don't regret at all. So basically put that on the back burner. There was a point when my kids were about, my oldest, I think he was probably 10. It was around 2009, 2010, something like that, where Candace and I thought we had the opportunity to maybe get the musical performed. and it wasn't quite done at the time. So I'm like, okay. At the time, I was homeschooling 2 kids. I had my own online business selling saddle pads. That's what I was doing as my part-time job, selling these really high-quality saddle pads online. And then I was just like, I have no extra time, like zero. So when am I going to do this? Because I'm the composition part of our team. She's like great with lyrics and melodies and stuff. I'm the one who writes it down, which is the time-consuming part. So I stepped back from my responsibilities at my church, and I spent every Sunday that winter holed up in my bedroom, because we had this little tiny house, and that's where my piano was, and I had my laptop there, and I was scoring out the rest of this musical. And it got done, and I mean, even in that process of, at that point, 10 years further on in maturity and stuff, then when we started it got so much better. It's going to be great if we ever get to the point where it's actually on a stage, but yeah, so basically I learned a lot about this craft of storytelling just from actually making that musical what it is. But still didn't want to be a writer. Now in 2005, December 2005, we moved to Peace River. Okay. And our families were mostly around the Sylvan Lake area still. And at that time we had, our third child was only a month old, so we had 3 young kids. I didn't know anyone except for one family. And I just needed a creative outlet. And like 2 months later, I got introduced to blogging, and I just like fell in love, and I went for it. I'm like, this is amazing. So I just went great guns on blogging, and then like over the years, people would be like, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I was always, I don't know, I always heard novel because that's my thing. I'm like addicted to reading novels. I'm like, I don't know how to write fiction. I don't know. You know.
You just weren't ready to jump into it at that point.
I knew I didn't really have the true understanding of how to do it, and I didn't have the time to learn, and I didn't really have the desire to learn. I didn't have an idea.
Yeah.
Basically. But I did blog a lot, and I learned a lot about writing in different voices, you know, because I got really involved in the blogging community, which was super active back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was right before Facebook took off, so everybody just, you know, those random things that we put on Facebook now, people did that on their blog.
No, absolutely. No, I remember the blogging era because that was when Will Wheaton was at like his apex in terms of his celebrity, because he was doing Star Trek tales on his blog, and that really blew up because the cool thing about that whole era of blogging is people were sharing their experiences. I would actually go so far to say, actually, I think you deceived yourself just a tad. And hear me out on this. Probably in the midst of your blogging, you taught yourself how to tell stories because you were telling your story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. That was my training ground, actually. I agree with that. And I followed some really great storytelling bloggers, and I learned from them how to do it, essentially. And so, yeah, back then my blog was all about, you know, like funny things my kids did today, but I tell it like a narrative that you would actually want to read. Yeah. And, you know, not just randomly throwing, I mean, people do that on Facebook now, and it's great. But, yeah, my kids were little, so they said lots of funny things and did lots of funny things. It was great material. And so, yeah, and that's actually still on my blog, still on my website. If you go way back into the early years of my archive, you'll get to read those things. But then, yeah, time went on. I still continue to blog fairly regularly. I don't know if I've ever gone more than a month and a half without blogging.
It's a balance. Like for me, I haven't blogged regularly this year so far, but primarily because I've been transitioning into trying to say, hey, I can make this thing full time. Right. I think I can do it. But for me, it's been about focusing on what kind of matters, which for me is my books and my podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I imagine.
I agree. Yeah. You have to decide what it's doing for you and where you can spend your time.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I think that's everybody in general. We all have to choose. We have to pick and choose our battles for time.
Yes.
Right.
Time is huge.
Yeah. It's our real currency. When you get right down to it, it's our time. I don't. This is going to sound really bad. I don't care about the money as much. I care about my time. because I can make more money, I can't get my time back.
Right. Yes.
Does that?
I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, I have constantly over the years have always been refining where I spend my time, no matter what it is I'm doing.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm always very, very busy, and so even like my post that went up last week was talking about becoming healthier through better time management. That's something I've been struggling with, is finding time to actually fit in exercise. And
it's a really common struggle today. I think because we're all more accessible, people are accessed more now. That's the flip side of social media, right? We're accessed a lot more, and because we are accessed a lot more, our time just divides in these weird and wacky ways. In my case, I still have a job, right? I try to balance out, having relationships and right. I'm trying to balance all that out, and sometimes I suck.
Yeah, that's the way it is for all of us.
Yes.
I work more than 55 hours a week, so I get it. But for me, that balance has always been really setting aside the time on the weekends to have days off for me, for one thing, so I give myself permission to not work and spend that time with my family.
That must have been hard for you at a younger age, actually relaxing.
Well, I was probably better at it when I was younger in some ways. I had less going on.
That is really hard to believe listening to you.
Well, at some point when my kids were quite small, I didn't have as much going on. I brought in a little income to our family for the first couple years. I was selling Pampered Chef. And I did that 2-3 times a week. I'd go out and do that. But then when we got pregnant with our second kid was when I decided I need to actually stay home. This is too stressful for me to go out. So I need to find a way I can stay home and make money. That's when I started the saddle pad business online. I started on eBay and then eventually expanded. There's a really high quality brand that my mother's company manufactures. I had an eBay exclusive. It worked out great. But anyways, so kind of back into the how I got into writing thing. In 2013, we ended up adopting a 1-year-old boy in an open adoption from a family that we knew, and it was very fast. I don't necessarily recommend that the process go that way, but in this case, it kind of needed to go that way, because he literally started walking 3 days before we took him into our home, and he was in a situation where the grandmother was looking after him, but she couldn't lift him up, and she couldn't chase after him, and he was a very, very busy kid. So that was crazy. And I forgot to say that. No, I'm skipping ahead. Okay, now I need to back up a little bit.
Okay. So deep breath, breathe.
Okay. So actually, in 2010, this was 3 years before that. In 2010, I was doing this guilty pleasure. I was watching a young adult mermaid show. Okay, I've loved mermaids since I was a kid, and
What was young adult mermaid show?
With H2O. Have you seen that one? And now they have the Mako Mermaids, which is an offshoot. Anyway, so I'm watching this show, and I'm like, where are all the mermen? Why don't you ever hear about that? Why are the mermaids always, they weren't in that show, but in mythology, they're dragging sailors down into the depths, because around that time, I think the Pirates of the Caribbean with the mermaids came out, and it just started tweaking in my brain, and all of a sudden my brain started answering this question, and I was building this world, and I'm like, I have an idea for a novel. I don't know how to write novels. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to learn. So I actually went and I took a course through Holly Lyle, who has...
Holly's really good.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I took her How to Think Sideways course.
I thought it was always one of the coolest things she did. She kept herself very relevant doing that in between books. I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, and she still does. I actually am on her newsletter, and she's great. It's funny because lately she's been learning about marketing, and that's something that I've been kind of starting on, because I came from a business background and comes from different parts. Anyways, that's an aside.
Yeah. We'll finish this story and we'll go all over the place. Don't worry about it.
Sure. So anyways, so 2010 I got that idea. I actually found Holly right away, but I couldn't afford the course right away. So I was on her newsletter for a while and I learned a ton from that. And then she offered the course because she was revamping it. She had it on sale. So I took the course. And during that course, I actually drafted up what became my first novel, which is The Friday Night Date Dress. It was supposed to be a short story, and it ended up at 2,700 words, 27,000 words. So
it's a novella. It's okay.
It's a novella.
Yeah.
So I had done that in. Yeah, that was actually the December 2012. I had like a month off of schooling my kids, and I drafted that up, and then I basically let my mom read it, and then I stuck it in a drawer. Well, then a few months later, we adopted our son, and our life went crazy, and I just had a nervous breakdown because I was doing too much, adopting this kid really, really fast, and all the stuff that kind of went along with that, as well as trying to do a full course load for my 3 other boys. And
like I said, how do you relax? That's okay.
I just about had a mental breakdown, and my husband said, I think you need to stop homeschooling, which was hard for me because I really wanted to take them all to at least grade 3, and our third son was only in grade 2 at that time. I was like, well, okay. I mean, I looked at it and I'm like, you're right. This is the only thing that I'm willing to give up. So, and it actually ended up being a really good move. So our older boys went to school the next following year. Basically took the next 2 years just being a mom to this new little one. His name's Levi. And then, my mom kept bugging me about that book. She's like, that's really good. You should do something with that. Just do something. Try it. I'm like, okay, it's my mom. She is super supportive. I love her, but it's like, she would say everything I did is amazing. And I don't know, how do you know if it's amazing if your mom says everything you do is amazing? So, but I'm really thankful.
Okay, let's see if I understand this correctly. You somehow, from your high school days, not adult, but high school days, you started on a musical. You're most of the way through a musical until by the time you're as old as you are now. You married, had kids. So I'm going to ask this question. Just touch this question. So, how are you not amazing exactly? Because, and I don't say this, and I mean this, like, you've done an incredible lot of different things, and it sounds like, I think for you, probably the biggest struggle for you, if a struggle is the right word for this, is you were that kind of person that had a zillion different little things they wanted to do, and you went and did all those things, right?
Yeah.
All the while, and you might even still be in this space looking for what your true passion actually is. That's what you sound like to me, right? Now, I could be wrong.
Well, you're very astute, Josh. Actually, I have found my true passion. It is writing, but I'm going to explain how I got there in just a minute.
Yeah, no worries. No, but I'm interjecting. I'm interjecting right there. I mean, look. I mean, it sounds like your mom was awesome. I think your mom was pushing you because she's pushing you because we have most of us don't realize the opportunities we have in front of us. Like, I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of people tend to make is, okay, so right this minute I am talking to Talena Winners. I am getting an opportunity right now to get to know you a little bit better. Now, up the road, who knows? Maybe I go to you, hey, remember that musical? Well, I know somebody that might be interested in making that musical. Right? And that's entirely a possibility. Then maybe I don't know. Or maybe somewhere down the road say, hey, listen, I know this person that would be great to interview. I told them about you. You're nuts, but that's how these things go.
Yeah.
Every time you have a meeting or a project, there's every moment's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Right. Every moment's a possibility. So it's not about. So you have really two choices. What could it be, or what could it have been? And I think most people would rather have what could be over what could have been, but a lot of people don't realize that. And that's just my honest.
So why do you think that? Like, what do you mean by the could be, could been?
Because a lot of people. So I grew up with both my mom and my dad, and they're both kind of opposites. My dad, much like you, had to spend his whole life searching for his passion before he found it.
Okay.
My mom gave up her passions, and that's a long story in of itself. There are a lot of factors in that. But I feel with when I look at my dad, I see what he could be and what he's going for and striving to be. Now, I'm not saying my mom isn't happy in some ways. I think we all have this to some degree. There are things that could have been and things that we could be. I think we all have those struggles of what those things are, right? But in terms of her passions and loves, I think she denied herself a lot of things. Again, those are her reasons, and younger me would have condemned her for it a little bit, and I think that's wrong. Older me realizes that she had her reasons. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, she had her reasons. And good, bad, or indifferent, my dad had his reasons. Right? And it's taken me a long time to get to that point. But I look at even my day job, right? I work at a warehouse, and I get to see people, and I see some incredible things day in and day out from certain people in there for what they could do. I know that there's one. I guess the example is there's someone I know there. They're a photographer, and they could be a good one if they decided to go for it, but they don't value what they do enough to go for it. Consequently, one of my earlier interviews was with someone that actually photographs metal bands. So I'm actually getting a picture from her. She has this, and I think it's a great life example. She did I can't remember the name of the band. It's going to drive me nuts. But that's not the point. The band doesn't really matter. Well, they were performing in front of a high school. And a couple of the kids actually had the guts to go up and sing with the band. Cool. Isn't that really cool? Yeah. But that's the life lesson, right? In that moment, we all have opportunities to make things more. And if we take those chances, right, you never know where they lead you. Now, sometimes they don't lead you where you think they're going to lead you, right?
Usually not,
but sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's better. Even when you strike out, you don't really strike out, right? Right? So what could be is always in my head, and I try to have what could be going forward and trying to minimize what could have been.
That's a healthy attitude, I would say.
Yeah. Does that actually make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So your mom, going back to you, didn't want this to be you could have been a writer.
Right, yeah.
You could be a writer.
Yeah.
I could be a bedtime author. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom has been hugely supportive for my whole life, and I thank her publicly as much as I can for pushing me to do something with that story. So by that time, our son was just about 3 when I finally decided to go ahead. And I'm like, well, it's not commercial. It's too short. It's just a novella. But I'm like, I could, Holly had gone through the process of self-publishing in the course. I'm like, well, I'll give that a try, So just for practice, I hired an editor. In the course, she says, when you're looking for an editor, talk to authors and ask them, who they use and who they recommend. Well, I knew, as an acquaintance, I knew exactly one author. And she was a woman that I had contacted online because while I was researching for my mermaid world idea, I came across her recently about to be published book that was a Christian mermaid fantasy. And in the Christian world, fantasy is kind of like a real hit or miss thing.
There's I want to say Kathy Tyers is her name. She has this great little series about outer space. It's a science fantasy is what it is. It's really, really good. It's a really good series. And one of my all-time favorite Christian books, like science fiction books, is Oxygen. Having faith in outer space when you're out of air is actually really.
Sounds good.
No, it was really good. That's one of the best examples. Then there's some that are very hokey, I think is the word.
Yeah, there are some.
My whole commentary, there's some really good Christian fiction out there, but I think the balance is, I think Christian fiction has a struggle with being real versus being like this fantasy of what is, right? And I think good Christian books acknowledge what is real.
I agree.
Right, over what is the ideal, and I think, and what is that? And again, as I get older, and why is there? I hope, right? I realize that my definition of what that ideal is because has evolved into something very different than what it was when I was younger, and I think that's a good thing. I think
maturity is good.
Yeah. Well, it's just not just maturity, just also just doing this podcast. I get this opportunity to meet all kinds of amazing people. Whether they're Kelly Armstrong, my most recent actually interview I just posted online, or people like Kelly Armstrong, Fawn Legion, LaSalle, or even people just getting started, right? And everybody comes from such a different perspective. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And I could do one of two things. I could be completely closed off to what's different and miss out on so many cool things, right? Like working with the Calgary romantic community. They are some of the greatest people I've ever met, and they're all awesome. All right, no matter where they stand on the walk of life, they are so cool, right? I have, because I was open to it, right? I gave myself that opportunity, and that's and that's a great thing. I had to let go of a lot of things. I think one of the smartest Bible things is judge not, lest ye be judged. It's one of the smartest things ever. As I've gotten older, I've thrown out normal. That doesn't exist. I've thrown out judgment as much as I possibly can, because, to be honest with you, it's bigger than me, and I realize, I just no longer, I don't worry about certain things. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You said something there about. Oh, now I've lost it. Christian publishing. Yeah, Christian fiction, and about it being real.
Yeah.
That's actually something I struggle with, even though I'm very, very fervent Christian. I don't like reading Christian fiction because a lot of it is what I call sanitized.
No, and it's true. No, and a lot of it is. A lot of it actually is, and there are some good exceptions to that rule, and they do exist. Like I said, Oxygen. If you've ever looked for that one, that one's really good. But if you look at what that ideal, like, that world does not exist. No, it does not exist, and it shouldn't be forced. I don't think it should be forced to exist, right? Yeah, right. And that's kind of where I am on that. Not that there isn't some good things. There's good things in everything, and you have to be willing. You have to be wise enough to look at something, no matter what it is, the good with the bad, right? And if you can, and try to, and recognize it for what it is. That's it. And then once you realize this, right? You let go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And I'm gonna even get to a little bit more of that as I go through my.
No. We'll go back to it, but.
Yeah, I agree. I totally. I empathize exactly. I think what you're saying there about throwing out a judgment and stuff like that. That was one of my more recent struggles I dealt with a few years ago. Was I thought I was a very non-judgmental person, and life circumstance hit me upside the face and made me realize, actually, you're pretty judgy in this area.
Yeah. Well, for me, I lived in the Mormon community for 2 years. Okay. So it wasn't by kind of by accident, kind of.
How does that happen by accident?
Okay, so I got this opportunity to work with a hero of mine. I read, he did comics way back in the day, and I read them, and I met him doing an interview like this, and he asked me to work for him, which I thought was a really cool thing. Yeah. But I knew nothing about the area I was going into. Like nothing.
Oh boy.
So. Again, I was just taking a leap of faith is what I was doing. Yeah. And I go out there, and it's a Mormon community, but it's a very... Do you know what the term Molly Mormon?
Marley Mormon?
No, Molly Mormon. Do you know No. Okay, so there's three different kinds of, well, there's two different kinds. There's what they call Molly Mormons, which are very by the book, Mormon, down to everything, all right?
Okay.
Right? And then there's what they call Jack Mormons. Now, Jack Mormons are awesome, right? Because they're like, again, a lot more, they have their beliefs, but they're very live and let live. Like they don't have the same degree of judgment.
Okay.
Going back to that, so I got to see a very extreme environment, because when you're in a very, very, very traditional, what tends to happen is you have a very, very squeaky line of a sanitized, for lack of a better term, way of being, and you see the dark side of that, which is another extreme altogether, right? And I ended up empathizing with that extreme a little bit, because I understood why, because there was no way to vent that pressure. Whatever that pressure was, there was no healthy way to do it, and so there was no healthy way to do it. There was a lot. That's why they talk about people rebelling from the church and stuff like that. That's where that was that to an nth degree.
Okay.
Right? You see where I'm coming from? So when I came out of that little point in my life, when I left there, and like I said, there's still some days. There are some days I struggle with this still. But I was like, you know what? That normal, that right and wrong, meh. It's just, not that big. After living in a place where I had an enforced right, I was like, this is not very healthy. And I just recognized that this was not very healthy at all. It's like, live and let live. That seems like a good starting point. And again, I've had to learn and evolve and grow with it. It's not an overnight. It wasn't an overnight process, but me now, even me 3 years ago, I'm a lot more open now than I was. Partly because of the podcast, but partly because you just learn. You just learn, like, you have to. As I get older, I've learned that I've had to let more things go, and that's right. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. I'm giving up what I was for who I'm becoming.
Yeah, if you're happy with the progress you're making, then
no, that's it. That's
exactly
it. Right. That's what you got a choice. You can, like, going back to what I said earlier, you can fight it and miss out, or you can embrace it and go, you know what, this is the way the river is going. Go with the flow. I mean, it doesn't cost me anything to again let people do what they feel is right. Who am I, right? And that's I don't have all the answers. This world is a bigger place, more wondrous and magical, and in every conceivable way than I could possibly imagine. What I've seen is incredible. What I haven't seen, I know that's possibly out there, is also incredible. Why deny that? Just be open and let what will come your way when you're ready for it come your way. Does that make sense?
I think so. Similar in some ways to what I believe, although I believe God sends in my ways.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Right, absolutely. Right? Yeah. But I'm not.
I'm just saying I get it. Like I think it's important to have that open expectation, because for one thing, it gives you a positive attitude. Like, and if you don't have that positive attitude, then it's really easy to slip into really depressing moments, especially for those of us in the creative arts who are constantly putting ourselves out there. We're always dealing with, like, imposter syndrome. Here's something crazy. The day before my book released, 2 days ago, I just had a moment, and I'm not gonna say why, but I had an imposter syndrome moment. I'm about to release my third print book, and almost everyone. What?
High five.
Thank you. And almost everyone who's read it in advance loves it. There's this one person that couldn't get into it. Get over it, right? And so I just realized, I'm starting to recognize now that imposter syndrome happens to us anytime we're feeling vulnerable. That's when it comes. So
I actually have a theory about imposter syndrome. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, I would.
So we don't fear failure. We fear success. Here's why. expectations. Because if I try something and I strike out, I haven't really lost anything other than maybe some time.
Right.
Right? And if it's something I really want to do, I'm okay with it. I gave it a shot, college try. But what if I'm good at it? But what if people like it? What if people want more of it? What if...
Yeah, pressure.
Again, expectations.
Yeah.
Right? Expectations.
Yeah.
I'm successful.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there's a standard I'm having to meet up.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
I get that.
People don't... so one of my favorite quotes is by Laura Williamson. It's not our darkness, but our light which terrifies us.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because we don't fear that we're small, we fear that we are all powerful and that we should shine like children shine. I think that it's a great quote. I love that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes because it makes a ton of sense. Because it's like, who are we to be out there and be bold and say, here I am? Like, who are we? On the flip side, who are you not? You should. There is never going to be another Talena winners. You are literally 1 in 250 trillion in the possibilities. That was the odds of you coming into be on this planet.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
1 in 250 trillion. So, right?
Is that a real number?
It's a real number. The odds of your mom meeting your dad are 64 billion to 1. Wow, that's the odd. That's the like by itself. That's 64 billion to 1.
Yeah.
The odds of you coming from them is that number gets bigger, and it just all the factors that made you to you. They're almost they defy any kind of odds that exist. So you're here now. You do stand out because you are here.
Yeah.
Already. You already stand out. So what you need to do now is whatever you feel here, that's what you're here to do.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah.
Because you will encourage others to do the exact same thing. And we don't have enough in this world of people saying, here I am, and this is who I am, and this is what I do, and I love, and I like what I see when I do those things. And that's where imposter syndrome attacks us. It attacks the ego. Who are you to have expectations?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely one aspect of it.
Right?
We all struggle with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I've had so many, lately I've had so many opportunities open up and successes, and I just kind of go, last week I had to put together a press release, writing the exact same kind of article about myself that I write for people all the time with my job with a Move Up magazine. And I was just like, who says this about themselves? You know?
It's so I mean, here's my weekly battles in imposter syndrome. I hear my voice every week on the podcast.
We all hear our voice.
Yeah, but I mean, I literally hear it on the audio. I have done 258 episodes as of this recording.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah,
high five.
Yeah, I've done 250 episodes. I have an Royal Award for this. So people think I'm actually good at this.
You are.
So, yeah, and so I'm like, but to me. And this is the other part of this too. This is perfectly normal to me. This isn't extraordinary from where I sit because for me it's just what I do.
Right.
And flipping it around, that's what you're doing the same thing. You're just doing what you've always done. The only difference now is everybody notices.
Well, yeah.
You're right.
Exactly.
But since your goal is to be noticed, because that is what we're trying to do, then you have to go. The thing, when I won the Aurora, I realized that this was an opportunity to extend road into other things, right? But I also realized that what got me here was simply doing what I've always done. So if I want to keep going further, I must keep doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Because this is what got me here.
Yeah.
I mean, evolve it a little bit. You have to change it a little bit as you go. But don't stop what got you here, because that's what got you here.
Yeah, I think right there, that is the difference between people who make it and people who don't.
Yes.
Yeah, because they just go, I've decided to do this, even on the sucky days, I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yes. No, it's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Like that's the way it goes. I'm like I said, I'm behind because I was supposed to release my first book by now this year. I have 2 books ready to go. 2 books ready to, yeah. One's a short little like epic poem, and one's my first novel. My first novel is supposed to be released a little later in the year. Right. So, but again, it's about it's been about establishing the habits there I've established here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what it's about. And some days I found creating more time for myself, it means I have less time now. I found that was the irony. I opened more time and other things have filled it, and I've been learning how to balance that all over again. Right?
I find that that's a constant battle, by the way.
Yeah.
I have to reassess my time management probably 3-4 times a year.
Yeah.
Because life keeps changing, and as different things, opportunities come your way, basically what helps me, and I hope maybe this helps you, is because I used to hate to say no to things. But now I've had to learn when to say no, because I realized that my no to that is actually a yes to something else that I have given priority in my life. So I've learned to say no to, say, volunteering, which I love volunteering, but I can't do all the volunteering if I'm working 55 hours a week and I still want to have, a marriage. Or see my mom once in a while.
or say hi. No, you have priorities. No, for me, I had to put a number on my podcast this year, like in terms of what it's actually worth to put time for specific moments, because I realized that when people from high school are coming up to you that you haven't talked to in years after you win something, you realize that, although again, I'm not a super big success story yet, but I might become that.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, if I'm already getting attention now, what kind of attention am I going to get later?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like,
get used to the preparing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's it. So I have the art of the dollar amount. I have the dollar amount I'll pay, the dollar amount I'll charge if it's going to be a headache. It sounds so true, but it's like, how much will this cost me to do it if there's no, and I will ignore the headache. That much, okay. That's it. And I literally, like, in my head, I asked that question, like, boom, 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 boom. Because I don't want to do it, but I will do it for that much. Like, that's an important number. Like, I've had to do that this year.
Okay.
Right? Because not because I want to necessarily do it, but I'm very choosy about who I work with. I'm very choosy. Actually, I've become very choosy in general with the people in my life. If I find that I've become that, I want people that want to be there, and if people that don't really want to be there, I figured out how to filter them out.
And, wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to set. I'm a big, I call it a boundary evangelist.
Yes.
I had to start learning this because of that. As I said, I hate saying no thing. For my own sake, my husband actually gave me a book about boundaries about 1.5 years ago, and I tell you, I preach boundaries all over the place now. They're amazing.
So my boundary is actually incredibly simple. I'll tell you, this is what I came up with. I said this on a podcast not too long ago. People do exactly what they want to do. When I realized this, it was like, this is a really easy bound. So I set this up. I keep my door open, but I don't chase anybody anymore. So what ends up happening is I find that the people that want to be there find their way to be there, and people that don't just don't. And it's beautiful because it's just like, well, if you didn't want to be there, then you're actually doing me a favor by not bothering me, because now we're saving each other some time.
Right.
Exactly. Right. We're saving each other time. If you do want to be there, well, I am accessible. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't chase after people.
Well, exactly. Right. And I found that was a really, really annoying, and I've said this, it annoys some people, because what I've also done is I've eliminated excuses. If you want to do it, you'll do it. If you don't, you won't. And I'm not going to judge you for it, but I'm going to call you on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it works.
Good for you. Yeah, for sure.
Hey, we should get back to how you got in the writing.
Okay, sure. Well, seems like a good spot.
Yes. Come to think of it, I don't think we did get to there quite at the end there. So part 2, I promise we'll get into how she got into writing. But as you can see, Talena is an amazing woman. The Undine's Tears is available now. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. Maybe Undine's Tear. But the book is amazing, and you should definitely check it out. Talena has written something that's really incredible. Wouldn't shock me if it actually was on the Aurora ballot next year. But yeah, no, like I said, I'm enjoying the process right now. I'm on a deadline. Cloud Diver has to be handed in to my editor at June 27th, or she beats me. And I'd rather not get beaten by my editor. She's an amazing editor. Ironically, same editor as the one at Talena's book. So I know she does an awesome job just on that alone. But I really appreciate the work she put into my book. So Ellen, just as a quick shout out to you. Thanks for everything you did. And I'm working on it. I promise. Let me think here before I wrap up. Is there anything else I need to talk about? Oh, yeah. Stay tuned to audiosources.com later this week. I'll be doing a special little podcast just for them. I have a couple other things happening as well. All in all, though, things start to just keep moving, and I'm really, really happy on the path of success I have walked. Hopefully, by the time you guys are hearing this, the Raptors will win their championship. I'm kind of hoping for that, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Okay, until then, though, that'll do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of different ways. You can look at my sponsors, all of them. Get their books, get their information, do cool stuff with them. Adam Dries is an amazing author-speaker. Talena is an amazing author. Jason LaBelle has an amazing podcast. Check all my sponsors out. They're awesome, I promise. Number one. Number two, my podcast. You can subscribe to it. Podmac, Google Play, Spotify, and iTunes. I'm there as well. You should definitely do that. Leave a review, a comment. Let me know kind of what you think about what I've been doing with the show. If there's anything you'd like to see me do differently, I'm open. Always am. Number two. Number three, my books, The Watchstone Dancer, Wandering God, is available currently through mirrorpublishing.com and anywhere you can find books, any platform. Outside of that, stay inspired. Keep doing your thing. Good things will happen to those who wait, and I'll see you guys later this week with part 2 and yet another winner to announce. Until then, just don't get caught, guys, okay?
Josh. Shush.